Hello everyone, it's me, Games99, aka Nober, and welcome to another Star Wars Destiny spoiler video for Empire at War. Team Covenant recently released a video with an interview where they interviewed Lukas Litzinger, I want to say. I should probably know his actual name at this point. He was the lead designer of lead designer, I don't even know that, of Star Wars Destiny. They showed off 6 new cards, and before we get started, I recommend that you go see that video. It'll be in the description below. Now that I've assumed you've watched it and you're caught up, I apologize first that this took so long to make. I blame Star Wars Destiny database. I liked to steal their images off of the last time, and they do not have them up on that website just yet. So I took a while, but I eventually found an Imgur link by a guy called Praised59. So thank you very much for this, Crazed. So let's get right into it here. We're going to start with the card that is most different from the others. The others all tend to have a theme, while most of them anyway, but this one definitely doesn't. It's the character K2S0, legendary 1520 hero. Because heroes needed another 1520, right guys? Who's also a legendary of 12 health? Yeah, great. This is going to be great. Fantastic. I'm so glad we're getting these useful characters that heroes just do not need. Saying that though, it is quite nice that they're finally getting a character who is melee, who is not blue. Because that's something that's been very, very annoying for heroes, that all of their melee are in blue, all of their everything else, all of their ranged is not blue. It's felt pretty bad when you're trying to make Luke. You gotta make Luke Ray work. I mean, hero blue is very self-sufficient. Don't get me wrong, but ugh. Anyway, this guy's 1520. He's got some interesting sides. He's got Luke's sides with 2 melee and 3 melee, but he's also got a discard, which does synergize well with Commando Raid if you ever want to run that card for some really weird reason that you do. He's also got that resource, but he's got 2 shields compared to Luke's 1 shield. He can activate off of synchronicity on his own. He seems a perfect partner with a blue character for that reason, and it's 2 shields. I think this is correct. The actual values of these is the same as Vader's, and I think the guys over in FFG are finally starting to realize that a 1520 needs more than just 2 sides that are above 1s, right? IG88 would be so much better if that shield side didn't cost a resource, guys. I'm just saying. And I think looking at this character, if they remade IG88, they would make him without having to pay for that second shield side, because this guy has that shield side. Now, his ability, however, is very contentious. The cost to play a weapon is increased on this character specifically is increased by 2, but after you play or move a weapon onto him, ready him, but only once. You can only do that one time, but you get to ready him. You get to leadership without having to exhaust another character. You get an additional turn effectively, because this guy, if this guy's at 20, he is kind of your turn, right? But you get a new one if you pay 2 on top of a weapon. This means that Vibro Knife is not a card you can necessarily play on him because it'll cost 4. You can't really play weapons on him at all, really. But if you do play a weapon on him, oh god, you could do some serious damage. What this, of course, you want to move a weapon onto him, right? You don't want to play it. You don't want to spend 2 extra resources. There are very few decks that could afford that, Honore being one of them probably. But there are very few hero decks that can actually afford this. So you're looking to try and redeploy. Generally, you want to like put Padawan or Loot Ray or something like that with a lightsaber or hold that blaster, redeploy it over. But the problem with that is that this guy's 1520 and his ability basically reads as kill this character first or else you're gonna have a bad time. I don't mind that necessarily. I don't mind having them forced to kill off the stronger character because that makes Padawans particularly deadly because Padawan's biggest weakness is their low HP. This guy can synergize with them as a result. It'll be interesting to know if he can be played with his if we actually get a 15 cost hero, we can actually maybe even run a 1 dice of him and have him basically be the hold of the redeploy, you know. I'm thinking that if they're going to be attacking him rather than the Padawan, you know, Noble Sacrifice is a card. No, 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 don't try it. As for viability, people are saying that this doesn't necessarily make him viable because of the weapon cost increase, but heroes tend not to rely on their weapons very much. They've got Luke's lightsaber and they've got lightsaber, they've got vibro knife, but their other good stuff. Not only is it neutral mostly, but it's Mikashi training, force training, yeah, those two. There's a third, isn't there? Mikashi training, force training. There's the Jedi. There's the Journals of Obi-Wan. There's the promotion. That's got a melee side on it. You know, you've got that's 8 upgrades worth of slot right there. So you know, you can run this guy without having to run weapons at all even. And one thing that'll be very interesting to see is if the It's a Trap melee version actually comes into play. Because FN runs melee, and It's a Trap destroys range decks. Maybe we can have a melee It's a Trap. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough melee cards to exist yet, but you never know. We might be able to get some. And that would be very interesting. I would love to see that. And his sides are just better than Luke's. Like, this guy is a better version of Luke, really. Like, if you're taking the standard Luke Ray right now, you might want to just run this guy in Ray. I mean, you can't get the My Allies the Force because this guy's got red sides. Your guard is a lot weaker, but you get that second shield side, which is a very big deal, having 2 shields rather than 1 shield. And, you know, there is the potential for the redeploy. Ray does run Vibro Knives and Holdout Blasters. Maybe right at the end you do Holdout Blaster. Ray moves the... maybe. Probably not still. Alright, moving on to the next card now. I wanted to talk about Rollon! Oh, this is a fun card. That's probably not going to see much play, but fun nevertheless. Reroll a die. You may reroll that die. You may reroll that die again. Has to be your die though. But this actually I can see some use of. I mean, people are talking about the whole swiftness roll-on combo. Oh, but it's neutral, which is interesting, and it allows you to more. Well, it just provides a lot of consistency. You know, it allows you to activate cards like Dark Presence or Salvage Stand or Imperial Inspection or Your Eyes Can Deceive You. Cards that require you to roll a specific side that you might potentially don't really want to be resolving, but you want to have rolled them anyway. You know, that's very useful there. And I can see this taking the spot of basically any card, any Use the Force. I don't know who the hell plays Use the Force now. Maybe there's maybe Luke Ray, but generally speaking, you don't want to play Use the Force, and now you definitely don't want to play Use the Force here. You have a 3 times 1 out of 6 chance to get that dice what you want, get that side that you want. You know, that's a good chance. And if you're playing it with say a Luke or a Vader, that's a 2 of 6. That's a 2 in 6 3 times. You've got a very very good odds of rolling the damage that you need for this card. But I'm glad that this exists. It's a funny card. Alright, and next up we have the LR1K Sonic Cannon, Lurker Cannon of Sonicness. Directly copyrighted off of Command & Conquer, clearly. Command & Conquer 3 to be precise, with the Sonic Cannons. A very interesting card. Support Artillery, 5 resources, neutral. And it's got the first 6 ranged on the game. 3, 4 for a resource, 5 for 2 resources, 6 for 3 resources. And before resolving this die, you may exhaust a character to not have to pay the cost of the die. This is kind of ridiculous in terms of damage, but you've got to be worried about deflects. That 6 and that 5 you can deflect for 3! 3! An 8, 9, or 9 damage swing! Holy shit! But this card, I'm glad to see it's printed. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad to see this printed. It'll make the four troopers type of decks way more effective. Exhausting a character to not have to pay the cost. And it'll also be much more interesting for my Poe hired guns. Exhausting a hired gun to activate this 6 for 3 resources. But the worry is that it's really useful for Poe Maz right now. Now, you can't do what people are saying you can do. You cannot use Poe's special to resolve the 6 and then tap Maz to not have to pay the resource. That's not how that works at all, because it's a before ability. That means that the ability is not inherent to the dice itself, meaning the card has to be on the board in order to activate its ability. So that's not what's happening there. But it does give the Poe a lot of options to choose from. Poe Maz tends to end up with quite a few spare resources at times, and if you really just need to push that extra 2 damage in there, and even if you never do that, it's still a 4 for 1, which is what Poe Maz wants to run, right? I mean, you run this instead of Bowcaster maybe, Rocket Launcher maybe. There's options. There's options. Interesting to note that both sides have characters that can run this quite well, though, in general. Cards in general that can run this quite well. On the hero side, you can get around the resource cost with Planned Explosion. This could be 6/10 of the way to a Planned Explosion. Very effective, again, with my Poe double higher gun deck. But villains definitely clearly have the ability to abuse this card the most. I mean, you've got Imperial War Machine, which can remove the resource cost entirely on its own. People are already running it in FN decks saying, this is better than they gave it credit for. It is basically a zero cost event that gives you a resource just purely for resolving dice, and this would give you 3 resources for it. So efficient. And then you do have the other card that was spoiled, Ruthless Tactics, which allows you to add the cost of the dice onto it. Now, if you play that and also tap a character to not have to pay the 3 resources, you're doing a 9 for 0. 9 for 0. That's just insane. Will this dream happen? Maybe. It costs 5. It's not easy to get out, but I think it's a lot easier than people give it credit for. You can definitely get to 5 resources if you're trying to. This could potentially even replace Endless Ranks, maybe, in the 4 Troopers deck. And of course, villains have the quintessential card to really make this work, TIE Pilot. Stop those deflects. Stop everything to do with that. Allow you to actually resolve the dice. That's important, to be allowed to actually resolve the dice. However, is this better than ATST? Now that's a difficult question to say. Neither of them are unique, which helps there. Both sides actually are having trouble with actually just filling out that support role. Heroes are doing it better. They have U-Wing, Launch Bay, but then they have a Millennium Falcon, which is a unique. I would love to run this instead of Millennium Falcon. I'd probably in my support heavy decks, I would probably run 2 U-Wings, 2 of these, and then 1 Millennium Falcon rather than the current 2 U-Wings, 2 Millennium Falcons. Launch Bay just isn't quite consistent enough at times, unless I am running it with C-3PO, of course, then you got that. Use C-3PO to make this a 6 focus. Oh, yeah. But villains really are missing out on a lot of good supports. They've got TIE Pilot and Speeder Bike Scout, which are not very good cards. Speeder Bike Scout is fun. You can really abuse that special in really fun ways, or at least you could in Awakening. But with 4 speed and stuff, that's kind of just it's not that cool anymore to be able to do that. But so they're left with just Slave 1 and ATST, and Slave 1's are unique, and that's not very good. And you have to go into yellow for that, which is not very nice. I have the Night Sister. I have my Night Sister TIE Pilot double Stormtrooper deck, and it just doesn't work out very well because it just doesn't have enough supports, and that's a real problem. But this will actually deal with that. My one problem though that I have with this is that it's a legendary. A lot of legendaries have been spoiled already, and that's not very fun to know that a lot of the legendaries have been spoiled. I think it's something like around 40% of the legendaries at this point. And yes, this is quite a unique card, but Why are all our supports just legendaries? Can we not have something that's a little bit cheaper that still is very high end so people can use it? But I guess some people, I guess, I guess every good card game needs the ability for someone to roleplay as the rich dude, aka Seto Kaiba, to be able to just be like, I have all these really powerful super rare cards. It's not really that good, but they're rare. Ooh. It's just in this case, instead of a dragon fetish, we've got a giant cannon fetish, apparently. Alright, continuing the support theme, we have this. This is an amazing, amazing battlefield. I'm surprised people aren't more hyped about this. While you control this battlefield, the cost of the first vehicle you play each round is decreased by 1. Why is this good? Alright, so you might like it immediately like in this docking bay, which is claim, claim, and then you get to play a vehicle from either your graveyard or your hand, decreasing its cost by 1, right? The graveyard thing's better for sure, but what this does is this swings the whole start of the opening of the game in a completely different direction. A lot of vehicle decks tend to be pretty decent at winning the battlefield, but they struggle heavily in actually choosing a battlefield. They tend to choose battlefields that are very benign, very benign battlefields that just your opponent can't use very well, and they hope to just ignore the battlefield game completely because vehicles and supports are just generally just so slow, so action intensive because you have to turn them to actually activate them, and that costs an action. Then you got to resolve their dice, which also costs an action. And oftentimes you'll action and then they'll remove it, and then it's 0 tempo. Whereas normally, if you're removing a dice, it's you get a tempo off your opponent if they remove your dice, because the way it works is you activate your character, they remove yours, so you're not actually spending that action to resolve it. But with activating supports, that's kind of not true because you're only getting 1 dice out of them. And But what this allows you to do is it allows you to take your battlefield right at the start and actually use it, which is amazing for vehicles. Hey, smuggling freighter, people are trying to make you good. Have you seen this? You will become a 0 cost vehicle. You're still gonna be shit, but it'll be interesting. Maybe we can make you work. Who knows? Probably not. But this goes a long way towards helping that. And also, generally, there's just the idea that even if you're the person claiming, it's still valuable in that sense because look, compare it to Imperial Armory, where Imperial Armory is you claim and you play an upgrade, decreasing its cost by 1. This allows you to decrease the cost of your upgrade at the start of the turn rather than the end of the turn. So you get the resource, so the resource happens earlier. So it's just better for your cash flow in general to just go in earlier rather than to be able to spend that resource earlier rather than later. And it also works for those decks that can be fast with vehicles somehow, I don't know. It also works for them very nicely in that you effectively have claimed the battlefield on the first turn. You're a claim ahead at the very start of the game. Very, very good. And I would love to see more battlefields like this that just make up for the fact that you are not going to claim very often, if at all. This could be. I don't want to go ahead and say this could be meta defining, but this goes a long way towards helping things. I mean, it's a battlefield at the end of the day. You cannot rely on your battlefield, and it does not work with new orders at all because new orders allows you to use the claim ability, and this does not have a claim ability. But it's just nice to have to be able to choose your battlefield rather than having to go with the opponents every time and go, all right, Pomaz, you're just gonna get your throne room so I can get the 2 shields, or all right, Pomaz, I'm taking a really terrible battlefield so that you can have the 2 shields, just so that you don't get your throne room. Because both of those just feel really bad. Feel really bad. But if that card didn't convince you to play Smuggling Freighter, maybe this one will. Pindown, 1 cost, red, neutral, once more. A lot of neutrals here. Very nice, opens up the playfield a lot. Spot a vehicle, remove a die. Smuggling Freighter, you have no guns? How do you do this? You just land on people. I guess that works, okay, but yes, this is incredible. This is one of the most powerful removals in the game if you can have a vehicle up. It can be quite expensive to get a vehicle up, but vehicle decks needed this to remain relevant, honestly. Like when you're getting upgrades like Makashi Training or Personal Shield, just upgrades that allow you to just mitigate things whilst also being effective, you can see why you might want a vehicle to want to be able to spot a vehicle to remove a die. And this is one of the most powerful removals we've got so far. It's in the same vein of flank, but flank eventually, if your opponent just keeps passing forever, you're eventually going to use your characters, right? But with Pindown, you don't have to have the vehicle be ready. It just has to be spot a vehicle to remove a die. That's just so nice to just be able to do that any die. It can be your die. I don't know, your opponent's got a deflect. You want to remove your die that would kill your character or something. I don't know, but it's nice to be able to have that option. Very nice for a card. And because it's a vehicle card, vehicle decks, you're probably going to run this and you're going to run flank. Vehicle decks can really go quite heavy on the control now, and that is awesome. And finally, the last card spoiled in the set is Thermal Paint, a very interesting hero upgrade card. Interesting because it's weird. In order to talk about this, I have to talk about Sabine afterwards. So we will be covering Sabine after this one, despite this being the last one, because I didn't cover her in my actual spoiler video, initial one. So I'll talk about her afterwards. But basically, she synergizes with thermal cards, reduces their cost by 1, and allows you to play things from the graveyard. So Thermal Paint is a 1 cost for her, effectively, 2 costs for most other people. After you activate the character, your opponent has to deal 1 damage to one of their characters. Then you can discard this card to force them to deal another damage to that same character. You're spreading the damage around a bit. It's like a mini Palpatine in some respects. And for that reason, I'm not willing to completely and utterly discount it, because Palpatine's damage was quite high as well, but I thought he would be anyway. But the cost is very prohibitive with this card, though. 2 cost. You're looking at a Vibro Knife for that. You're looking at a Hole Out Blaster for that. You're looking at Makashi Training. You're looking at a lot of cards that generally deal 1 damage quite consistently, but you can choose where that damage goes. However, this is very nice in that it's just 1 damage. You don't have to resolve the dice afterwards. It's just speedy 1 damage. It can go in either ranged or melee decks for that reason. It's not mixed damage, and it's kind of like a baby Planetary Uprising in some respects. You can combine this Planetary Uprising and just do a ridiculous amount of damage. Just every turn, you've got 2 Planetary Uprisings out, you've got 2 Thermal Paints out. Turn 1, activate character, they take 2 damage. Turn 2, claim. Alright, that's 6 damage. That's the average damage that you need to do in this meta. And that's done. I don't need to activate my character, but that's really expensive. That's 8 resources you would have to spend on that, But you do then have the option to discard the upgrade to deal 1 damage to that character. However, when you put it on Sabine, it's a different story. It becomes a 1 resource cost, 2 damage. With 1 resource, 2 damage, you can't choose where that damage goes. That's a lot more. That's a lot nicer. That's a lightsaber throw. Except you don't have to have the card in your hand all the time. You can throw the Thermal Paint the first time round into the graveyard to reroll some dice, and then later you can take it back and you can just start really just recurring it over and over and over again. Recurring a lightsaber throw is not bad at all. However, there's kind of more stuff I'd want to put on Sabine, but the other thing as well, of course, with Thermal Paint is that with Sabine, she does have that 1. It costs her 1 resource less to play it, so you get it back for 1, and then on the next turn you overwrite it, and as it counts as 2, you overwrite it with a 3-cost weapon, the DL44 Heavy Blaster, for example, and then you activate her, and then you can get Thermal Paint back for 1, right? That can be quite good economy-wise. You're basically doing a Padawan all the time with it. So I can see some uses out of this with Sabine. Other characters, though, very iffy on this. Very iffy as well. I don't know. Dice win games, Doesn't synergize with Patience. It's a terrible card. Doesn't synergize with Patience. End of story. But yes, we did get Sabine spoiled. Her promo card specifically spoiled at the end of the Spirit of Rebellion pre-release spoiler event sort of thing. Basically, when Spirit of Rebellion released, they already showed out Sabine Ren. And it is here. Sabine Ren, Explosives Expert. Hooray! Another 15-20 for Hero. Oh yeah, we're on a roll today. All these 15-20s that Heroes desperately needed. Another Legendary, of course, which is one of those that was One of those legendaries that was featured into my terrible statistic in the first place. And like I said before, this card is a 15/20 and it does have another side that is not a 1. It's got a 3 for 1 on the disrupt side. It can work with Planned Explosion. She's got Luke sides, 2 range, 3 range, 3 range for 3 disrupt for a resource, a 1 shield, 1 resource. Sidewise, this is great. We don't have a 2 ranged, 3 ranged character yet. Strange that she manages to fill that gap. She filled the same gap as IG88, but way better. However, she only has 11 health to Luke's 12 to K2SO's 12 health, and that's actually a significant deal, especially since her kit doesn't really provide any survivability. Her 3 disrupt for a resource is there to help with planned explosion, I guess, because Sabine Ren likes explosions. But I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised, hear me out, if they might change the dice on this character before she's actually released. That wouldn't surprise me because this girl is overpowered as all hell. I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes like another Ray, effectively. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Empire at War meta involves Sabine, who keeps all of the 4 character decks down, FN, who kills Sabine, and then Ray's just there going, "Hi guys, I'm here with Vader Raider, I'm sure we're still popular somehow." But the reason why she's so ridiculously overpowered is her ability. Before you activate this character, you may play a weapon from your discard pile on her, decreasing its cost by 1 if it has the word thermal in its title. Now, obviously, we don't know how many thermal cards there are in the game. There's likely to be more, but we have Thermal Paint so far and Thermal Detonator. People's initial thoughts when seeing Sabine was, "Oh my god, we can loop Thermal Detonator. This is the greatest thing ever." Of course, that was Awakenings. We were so much more innocent back then. But now, oh god, we've seen what Ray can do with ambush weapons. So you activate this girl, right? You take Holdout from the graveyard and put it on her. It cost you 2. Sure, you didn't get your resource you didn't get your cost on it, cost decrease, but you now got a hit and run for free. She hits and runs every single turn. She does not need the Starship Graveyard battlefield either. You have hit and run on a character who can quite definitely set you up for a planned explosion, and who has a disrupt side, and that disrupt side is 3 disrupt for a resource. That's terrifying! We already know how terrible action cheats can be. This girl cheats actions like crazy. She is Poe levels of action cheating. The only thing she doesn't have going for her that Poe does is that Poe's damage is generally just a lot higher. But still, oh my god, with 11 health, that's probably the saving grace, honestly, the fact that she only has 11 health. But oh my god, she can just action cheat like crazy. And that's not what heroes want. Heroes don't want action cheating, We're not going to see Han Ray anymore. We're going to see Sabine Ray. We're going to see all of the millions of action cheats in the world. Ray overwrites her holdout blaster with a vibro knife. The holdout blaster goes into the graveyard. Sabine, you get 2 actions. You activate Ray, roll out Ray. That's your first action. Sabine then activates. Sabine takes that holdout blaster, puts it on her. There you go. Sabine then activates. Now you've still got an additional extra action to resolve the planned explosion on all of those dice that you just rolled out for free. Oh my god. And of course, second chance works on her. Well, hey, it could be worse. At least Ray only has 1 dice if you're doing that. But if we get a 7/10 character... Oh wait, we have a 7/10 character! Urza! Who synergizes very nicely with this girl. Because that's 4 dice. 2 of those dice have 2/3 sides. That's ridiculous. But, it's only got 18 health, so it can't possibly survive, against a Pomaz or something like that. But still, I just wish heroes... I don't know. In Awakenings, you had this idea of heroes with the fair characters, because they tended to have weaker removal and weaker cards in general. But heroes have the much more powerful characters. They don't have Palpatine, they don't have Vader, and they don't have FN, who are the most powerful characters in the game, probably, but They have Poe, who is the most powerful character in the game, probably, and they have Rey, and they have Sabine. They have characters who are just cheats galore. I mean, Django. Okay, heroes and villains have equal amounts. It's just I feel like a villain when I play these types of characters. Oh, I don't know. I just. Oh, God. I don't like playing such heavy action sheet characters. And that is an action sheet character and a half. This has been me, GameSlayer99, aka No Brainer. Excited to see what the rest of Empire at War brings. After all, these are all just cards that I've been looking at in a vacuum. Where 15 out of 100, is it 120 or 160? It's one of the two. All could change here. Sabine could be nothing compared to other characters. I mean, honestly, with Poe Mars, Sabine is on the edge of not being overpowered. But, oh god, heroes are so shot full of them. I want to play characters like Chirrut, you know? Chirrut's a nice guy, he just doesn't have a teammate, and he's never going to get one whilst they keep releasing more of these types of characters who are 15, 20 and aren't actually filling the gaps heroes need. Heroes need a good 14 cost 2 dice character who actually is a damage based character. Heroes need a General Viz, okay? I'm just saying. Oh god. Signing off.